Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host Maria Casillas. And also we have a special guest today, which I will be introducing here in just a moment. But before we get started, I want to say a few things. First and foremost, we just want to just shout out our every weekers. So those of you who listen every week, you already know exactly what I'm talking about because you listen every week. Those of you listening to the very first time today, you're like, what the heck is an every weeker? Well, I'm going to tell you right now because you could potentially become an every weeker. Basically, an every weeker is someone who listens to the show every week. It's really simple, but we really, really love those people because it's those people who keep the show going, keep the show growing, all that kind of good stuff, and it's why we do this. We do this to provide value to you, to get your, get you new perspectives, to inspire you, all these different types of things. And we just really, really appreciate those who support this show. So thank you so much for that. And if you have not connected with us recently or yet, a really good place to do that would be with our Facebook group, which is called, what is it called, Maria? Help me out here. The Financial Coaches Community. Buy New Money Habits. I'm just joking. I knew that. I'm just teasing Maria because she always forgets. So it's called the Financial Coaches Community, Buy New Money Habits on Facebook. Recently, actually, that group has been starting to come to life a little bit more. It's always been growing. It's always been a good spot, but we've been seeing a lot more traffic with that. And, people are starting to ask questions. They're giving us updates with where their business is. All these different types of things, really good conversations, really good relationships that are being built there as well. So if you haven't yet, check that out, join in. We'd love to connect with you, ask some questions, and we can even potentially talk about something that you're wondering about on this very show. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I'm going to welcome in our very special guest, which is Wil Otero. Wil is the host of his own podcast called Stuck in My Mind. And it's a great podcast, guys. I actually got connected with Wil recently just because I was just like scrolling through different podcasts, trying to find different podcasts to listen to. Came about his show, listened to a few episodes, and I was like, I really, really like what Wil is doing here. I really like what he's bringing to the table, and I really like the people that he's talking to as well and what he's talking about as well. So I'm excited to bring Wil on. Wil, welcome, man. Why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? Who you are, where you're from, what you do, all that kind of good jazz. And we'll go from there, man.
All right. Well, during the day, my day job, I am a table game supervisor at a casino here in Pennsylvania. During the night, I am a podcaster. Stuck in My Mind podcast is my baby. I am a pandemic podcast. That's what I call myself. I started podcasting in 2020. And it's really changed my life. It's actually giving me purpose. I didn't know I'm 40, I'll be 48 this year. And I didn't know my purpose in life. And so when I started podcasting, this was something like I had never done. I wasn't in media. I didn't do radio, any of that. And when I started speaking to people and doing the podcast and having them come share their story and me share my story, it gave me an outlet that I didn't know I had. And so when it just started growing, it was just like, man, this is amazing. I'm able to make an impact on people's lives that I didn't know I was capable of doing. And so it's just been a wonderful 4 years being able to discover my voice and really try to make an impact on people's lives.
Yeah. Love it, man. Love it. And I'm aware about what, your podcast is about, at least generally speaking. Now, granted, I haven't listened to a ton of episodes. I listened to I think I'm probably like 3 or 4 episodes in. But just for those people who are wondering hey, what does Stuck in Your Mind even mean? What's the show about? Why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about that?
All right. So for me, it was, stuck in my mind was I was just making excuses to. I've been wanting to start a podcast since 2019. And I just started making up excuses. Who's going to want to listen to me? I sound horrible. My voice sucks. Nobody's going to want to, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. No one's going to enjoy what I'm doing. And I was just stuck in my head, like just making up excuses to why I shouldn't do the podcast.
Right.
And when I finally said, you know what? Kicked in the door and just press record and just started just recording, and it just like started growing. At first it was me, because like I said, I'm a pandemic podcaster. I was furloughed from work because of the pandemic, and I was like, it was more me venting about everything that was going on, because at the same time we had the elections going on, we had the George Floyd situation, and everything was just so negative. Everything in the news was negative. Everything was negative, and I'm like, man, I enjoy doing the podcast. I'm just not enjoying the content that I'm doing. So when I switched it to more interviewing people and talking to people about self-discovery, talking about growth mindset and development, and more positive content, that's when I really truly fell in love with it. It was like, man, I'm able to impact people's lives by talking to people, because you don't realize that everyone has a story, and they just need an outlet or a platform to share their story. And for me to be able to interview, when I first started, I interviewed all types of people. I interviewed celebrities, coaches, friends. I was just all over the place. And then it's been the last couple of years where I really just focused on coaches, entrepreneurs, people who are in the self-development game and all that. So it's just been amazing to see the transformation from where I was at the first couple of years to where I'm at now, these last 2 years, which have been two of the best years of my podcast, even with personal struggles that I've been going through. It's just been amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one thing that really drew me to the podcast, is that it's very forward moving. It's growth oriented. Like you mentioned, it's positive in those regards too. And you mentioned that everyone has a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that Maria's been sitting there waiting patiently. I'm sure she has something she wants to say. However, Maria,
took it right away from me.
Yeah, everybody does have a story, and I did connect with Wil a couple weeks back, and just kind of got connected with him. We learned a little bit more about each other, and Wil, you have your own story too, about just overcoming adversity and kind of using that to channel yourself into this higher calling, channel yourself into this purpose, like you mentioned, that you found with this podcast. And I think it'd be great to, just kind of hear a little bit more about that. Unless Maria, you have something else that you want to add in too, or you have a question. I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but yeah.
Actually, I do. It's not a question so much as it is just an observation. I just really appreciate how you recognize now, looking back, that your pivot to positivity is the thing that allowed you to actually find what it is that you were actually passionate about. And I think so many people get stuck, like you said, stuck in my mind, right? It's not just stuck in our mind, but it's stuck in an attitude. And you were in a certain way. And even though you went and did the thing, which I think is absolutely incredible that you did it anyway, excuse me, but you weren't enjoying it as much. It was draining your energy. It was draining your soul. And when you were able to pivot that to positivity, you're like, oh, like I can actually help people now. And it made all the difference for you. So I just wanted to say that I recognize that as you were talking. And then the other thing I wanted to point out to our listeners is that you did it. And that's when you found your niche. So you did not wait until you knew who you wanted to serve before you just went out and did the thing. And I think so many of our listeners, they get so stuck in the idea of, I got to know who my avatar is. I need to know who I'm serving, who's going to be listening, et cetera, rather than just picking up the microphone in your case and just talking and then finding that along the way. So those are the two things I wanted to point out to our listeners.
Well, to touch on what you're saying is, so people wait till there's a lot of people wait till like, oh, it's got to be perfect. I gotta know what it's gonna be about, how I'm gonna do it, and no, you just go out, record. It will work itself. It will work itself to the point where you're finally gonna know, like, oh, this is where I'm gonna go. This is where the vehicle is leading me. But I had no idea it was gonna be what it is now.
Right.
I didn't know I was going to be a top 5% podcast in the world. And for me, it was like, man, this is. I'm a Brooklyn boy. I'm a kid from New York City. That, like I said, wasn't a radio personality. This wasn't something that I was striving to do. But once I've discovered it, and for me, being able to express myself and discuss a lot of the things that happened, and it's just been a blessing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'll bet the blessings would have come even if nobody listened, because a lot of times it's just that it's almost like journaling, but out loud, and it just gives you that platform to be able to work through all of the stuff that's in your head and get it out somewhere. And it just so happens that people tuned in and listened, and they were also helped by it. But even if that had never happened, I'll bet the transformation would have happened for you.
Oh, it's been an amazing journey. It's crazy because so to go into my story, my first wife introduced me to the world of self-development in 2005. She introduced me to Tony Robbins and Louise Hayes and all these other different people. And 2008, she passed away in a car accident. And it was just like one tragedy after another. Because in 2009, I reunite with my dad after 25 years, only to lose him for Father's Day weekend of 2009. I reunite with him Friday, Saturday morning he passes away, and in like a 5-year span, I buried my wife, my father, 2 brothers, an uncle and an aunt that really molded me into the man I've become. And it was just I started becoming angry. It was I think my wife kind of prepared me by introducing me to the world of the world of self-development and everything, and but of course I was angry at God, the world. I was just very self-destructive. I headed down a path where I was just drinking and not caring about anything, just not caring about life at all. And so I was just a hot mess. It was just, didn't know where I was going to go, didn't know what life had in store for me and everything. And one day it's like this voice in my head is like, this isn't your path. This isn't what you're meant to do. This is not where you're supposed to be at. And when I started listening to that voice, I was like, man, you're right. This isn't where I'm supposed to be at. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be doing much more. And so I went, sought help, got therapy, started getting back into self-development and changing my life around. And then 2013, fell in love again. And she helped save my life. She helped me turn my life around by just getting things together. Like I started working security, started doing all these different things, but it was finding my wife now and her just seeing the potential in me. Because I like when we got together, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a pasta pitison. I didn't have a damn thing. But she saw something in me. So we started dating. We dated for a year, and she's like, "I want you to come move to Pennsylvania." She says, I want you to come live with me here in Pennsylvania, get out the city, get away from there. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. And I moved my brothers, my brother, my sister, my mom, and my sister-in-law. We all moved to Pennsylvania. Life for them improved. My brother and his wife actually purchased their first home here in Pennsylvania. And it's like I made a big impact on my family's legacy and life by making these choices.
So may I ask, just for the purposes of the timeline, Will, what year approximately did you move to Pennsylvania?
2014.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, 2014. So from 2008 to 2012, it was just one tragedy after another. And I was lucky, like I said, I was blessed again to find love and really shaped my life and turned it around. So I started working at the casino. I started as a security guard because I had security experience in the city, and started becoming friends with a lot of the pit bosses and everything. And they were like, the money's on this side of the table. I was like, okay. So I became a table games dealer at first, and now I'm a supervisor now. But it was just so much, like, going through everything I went through, losing everyone that I lost, and being able to seek therapy and speak to someone to really help me get my life back in order. And like I said, I think it was the fact that my first wife introduced me into self-development and into wanting to grow and learn and develop, because this is something we're not taught where I'm from. Where I'm from East New York, Brooklyn, one of the worst parts of Brooklyn when I was growing up. And we're not taught self-development. We're not taught we're taught go to job, get an education, get a job, and retire. We're not taught finances. We're not taught about development. We're not taught about wanting to grow as an individual. You're just like, this is what you're supposed to do. And so with her introducing me to this world, it's kind of helped mold me into who I am now and working towards that. But it's just been an amazing ride, man. Like, to be able to come from where I was at, like some of the lowest parts, like I was homeless at one point. There was a point in there where I was sleeping on people's couches, didn't have a steady place to stay until my sister and my mom came back to New York. And then she was like, listen, let's get together, we'll get up an apartment, all of us, and just we'll get back on our feet. And so I'm blessed to have an amazing family to help me through whatever I went through and everything, all the struggles. But I'm like, being able to share this now and being able to show people, like, regardless of what you go through in life and how low in life, how far down you're like, you can hit rock bottom, you're able to pick yourself up and turn your life around. And this is so being able now to have this platform to share this story and have people come share similar stories, and I love it, man. I love being able to come and talk to people and just show people that, listen, regardless of what you're going through in life, everyone has a story, and everyone can change their narrative and change their story.
Mm-hmm. There's several things that came up in that story, man, that I just feel like I need to say something about. First and foremost, and this is something that we talked about when we connected last, is like, you've had a lot of loss, man. And my heart goes out to you for that. And it's very, very tough to deal with that. Especially like, even with your dad, like you connected with him one day and then you lost him the next. Like, that's really, really tough. But I think that there's a few things that came to mind. You had mentioned that, like, where you grew up, no one taught you about this world of personal development or growth, whatever. And I don't think that that's a Brooklyn, New York thing. Like, I think that that's just in general kind of thing, right? Like we don't learn that kind of stuff. And it's, a big part of the personal growth, obviously not all of it, is also finances too. And, that's one thing that I hear all the time. I mean, I talked to someone this morning where they were like, we just were never taught anything, both of them, it was a married couple, both of them were never taught anything. So what I want to say with that is that, like, with your first wife, back in 2005, how she kind of introduced this new world to you. And then unfortunately, you had lost her shortly after that. What she did for you, man, was she gave you a gift. And it was a gift in the sense of, like, in the form of a seed almost, like she kind of planted that seed in you. And then you went into a very dark period of time for several years. And, maybe that period of time was essentially like, was you in the dirt, like you were under the ground, like in a dark, dirty, like just undesirable place, and then you found that new woman who kind of like gave you like this renaissance for life, and she really started to pour that water on you, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden this sprout came about, and it took years of going through like this trial and this, this suffering, quite frankly, to just keep growing and growing and growing through that, to the point where you could finally peep your head through that soil and actually blossom and literally be like, hey, everyone in the world, this is finally starting to come together for me, and I want to share this with you and help you through what I've gone through as well, right? So this is like a classic example of someone going through trial and adversity and pushing through that like no other, to only come out on the other side stronger, better, all those like empowering adjectives you want to call it, right? And then share that gift with other people so that you can then have that ripple effect and that purpose and that impact for years to come. And I think that, I don't even know if you understand like how much you're probably making an impact on how many people as well, because of who you are and what you've gone through. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, because like, I think that there's a lot of ties. I want to acknowledge you for the fact that it's your story, but I also want to acknowledge the fact that I think there's a lot of ties for even the people who are listening to this show, who are, new financial coaches, aspiring financial coaches, who may be feeling like, well, yeah, I have my own story with my finances, and yes, it was tough for me, or it was tough for my family for these many years. But I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I can do this. I don't really know if I'm ready. All that kind of stuff, right? Like, there's so many people that I feel are just sitting and waiting on their own personal gold that can really make an impact and a change on someone else who's literally waiting for them to just be introduced to them, so that they can actually like make that impact and help them grow, just like how you've done that with your own podcast. So that's one thing that I'm kind of seeing. What's your message to them, to that person who's listening and they're like, yeah, like that is me. I've been waiting for 2 years. I've been thinking about doing this for 3 years, and I just haven't done it because of where I'm at.
It's never too late to start over. It's never late to start over. Like I said, I started working at the casino and everything. And now I have a pension, I have a 401k, I have a Roth IRA, things that I didn't know about. Like I didn't know about investing money and any of this. And so my wife now, she knows all about this. She's like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna invest this amount percentage every check goes to your 401k and to your Roth IRA and all this other stuff. Because my wife is she's brilliant. I don't want to say that too loud. She might hear me and let it get to her head. but but no, she's very smart. My wife is very smart and intelligent, and she's helped people start businesses. She helped her brother start a mechanic shop, knowing that this is he never got to finish high school, didn't have his GED and everything because he was always at his father's shop working and all that. And so when his father passed away and everything, she went and she helped him start his own business, helped him build a mechanic shop where now he's his own boss. He doesn't have to work for anyone else. So when she seen me in podcasting, because I was a big gamer. Like when we were together, I gamed all the time and everything.
Mhm.
And when I started podcasting, I just abandoned my PlayStation. It was just abandoned with dust. And she goes, I know you're serious about this. She said, because you just completely abandoned your PlayStation. What can we do to make this profitable for us? What can we do? What is it that I can do to help you change? Like what can we do to make this a business? So we started a Real Watch Productions. Now I help other people start podcasts. I help them. I edit our episodes. I create intros, outros. All these things, all these skills that I learned from working on my own podcast. She's like, well, these are skills you've learned. Like, I went to YouTube University. Like, I'm an independent podcaster. I edited my own video, audio. I was my own marketing, everything. So she's like, well, these are skills you learned. Let's start doing something with it. Let's start helping other people avoid the pitfalls that you went through starting your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool. If I could go back just a second, one of the things that I really loved about your story, and we always love a good analogy here on this show, so thanks, Cody, for the analogy of the plant. I don't want to go off of it too quickly because I just want to say that your first wife, she did not live to see the fruits of that seed planting. And I think so many people, we think that the only results that are legit are the ones that we see happen. And that's not true. In fact, most of the effect that we're going to have on the people of this world, we will never see. And it might be that we die a young death, or it might be that we just never encounter them again. But it doesn't take away the value of that effect that we've had on those people. And so I just wanted to point that out because I think, your brilliant wife, your current wife, she's obviously very brilliant as well and is able to pick up on a lot of what was already started, but it doesn't take away what your first wife was able to do for you in the moment, even though she's not here to see it to fruition.
But she is here. She's like, we're energy. Like I'm someone who believes in energy, that we are energy. We do not get like this shell might not be here, but her essence and her energy is always going to be a part of me. Mm-hmm. She's always going to be a part of me. There's always going to be a part of her energy in me. So she's seeing this. She might not be here physically, mm-hmm. but energy-wise, she's here because a lot of the stuff that I learned was with her. Mm-hmm. So there is parts of her that are getting to see this.
Yeah,
and for me, it's like, man, it's just what's next? Where can and it's for me, it's oh man, I love it because, like you said, you don't know what kind of impact you're making. Like I didn't know that I would have people sending me messages saying like, "Yo, I thank you." One episode, me and a high school friend of mine, we had a great conversation. He's a highly successful real estate agent and real estate broker. I'm sorry, in Brooklyn. And we had a great conversation. We talked about manifestation, goal setting, all these different things that we were working on. And a friend of ours listened to the episode, and she sent me a message. She's like, "Thank you." She said, I heard the episode with you and Jason, and y'all discussed all this stuff, and y'all discussed about starting your own businesses and all this stuff. And she's like, I had been on the fence about starting a business, but then I hear two guys that I grew up with talk about starting a business, talk about manifestation, talking about goal setting, talking about all the things that they're doing and in self-development and growing, and it inspired me to take the leap. And that very next month, she started her business. And so to hear those stories is like, man, all right, I'm doing something. I'm impacting one person. Because now, since I'm impacting her, the people she's helping out now with her business kind of comes from me helping her out. So it's like a ripple
effect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's really important to point out, really what both of you just said, because we don't realize how much of an impact we are making on people sometimes. I actually received a message on Facebook from a girl that I had been talking to about 2 years ago about her finances. And, I had a couple calls with her. Ultimately, we never actually moved forward with coaching. But had a couple good calls, and she was in a pretty rough position, and I gave her some tips, told her to kind of keep me in touch, all that kind of stuff. And, one thing led to another, and we eventually just kind of stopped, talking. And then 2 years later, she reached out to me about 2 weeks ago, and she goes, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I paid off my car, and I'm working on paying off the very minimal debt that I have left. It's really only $2,000, and she also has like 10 grand in the bank. And she's like, I took a lot of what we talked about to heart, and I put that in motion and implemented it, and I have a lot more freedom with my money. And I just wanted to say I appreciate what you did." And really, like on my end, I look back at that conversation, I'm like, I really didn't do much. I just kind of listened to her, talked to her, went through her situation a little bit, gave her a couple ideas to kind of build off of, and said, "Hey, best of luck. Keep me in the loop." And that was it, But for her, it meant so much because she actually took that, implemented it, and it changed her life. And she's a single mom of 3 kids, So it's not even just her life; it's the kids' lives too. And it obviously meant something to her for her to reach back out 2 years later after we haven't talked for 2 years and just say, "Hey, this is what's going on. I really appreciate that." So like, it doesn't even have to be one of those situations to where you have like this deep connection with someone or a deep working relationship with someone to make an impact on someone's life, but then also those kids' lives too. That's really, really important. So, my thing here is like, if there's anyone who's listening to this and is like, I know I'm good with money, I know that I can do some good work with people, and I can teach people how to do this, but I don't know if I'm going to be good. I don't know if I'm going to be successful. I don't know if it's going to matter, the work that I do or whatever it may be. It just takes one person. It just takes one person to make like a real impact on. And you may not even realize that you're doing it in that moment. You know what I mean? So I want to just encourage anyone who's listening, who's on the fence, who's been considering about stepping into this world, to take those gifts and share it with the world, because you might be surprised as to how much it can actually impact someone.
And kudos to you for you could have easily been trying to just push your coaching on her, but you just you listen to her. Yeah. You actually you listen to her, and sometimes that's what people need is just someone to listen to them, not someone to push a product on them. And that's what a lot of these gurus. That's what they really. That's all they care about is just do it. Just do it my way. Oh, by the way, I got another program you might want to benefit. Instead of really listening to the people and trying to like, let's find a way where I can help you one time and I don't ever have to help you ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it feels like a lot of these gurus, all they want is to keep you in their systems,
Mm-hmm.
showing you. But when someone like you, who just really do truly care about people, where you're able to listen to that person, you could have easily just kept pushing your coaching on her, right? But you didn't. That's not what you did. You listened to her. You helped. You had a great conversation. You built the kind of rapport with her that she felt like, all right, I'm going to take what he said and run with it. And now look at 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Minimum debt, $10,000 in the bank, which a lot of us don't have in our bank. Some of us don't have $1,000 in the bank.
Right.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
So you've made an impact on her life.
Mm-hmm.
You've impacted her life in such a positive way. And like you said, she has kids and everything. You're impacting her kids now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is without you having her as a client.
Right. Yeah. And that's one thing that we talk about, you know, Maria and I, a lot, actually. Like, we talk about leading with our hearts, not with, you know, just trying to get the next client kind of thing, and really meeting someone where they're at. Like, when I talked to this woman, she was not ready for coaching. You know, like, she had a lot of things going on. She was in transition from moving from state to state. She was getting over, you know, a pretty rough, abusive relationship, like all these different types of things in the court system, like just a ton of stuff. You know, she wasn't really ready. But what she was ready for was just to vent and to just talk through things with someone and just say, hey, what can I do with my current situation? And I was more than happy to be that person. Like, did I get paid for that? No. But did I get something valuable from it?
You did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so did she, you know? So yeah, it's really important to lead with your heart, for sure.
You got something much more valuable than money.
Yeah.
You've got to you were able to change people's lives. You were able to impact someone's life. And did you get anything monetary from it? No, but spiritually and morally, you're like, man, damn it, I feel good being able to impact this person's life.
Mm-hmm.
I've changed her life. I've changed her children's lives. That's going into life, looking at it that way, looking at it like, wow, this is what I've done to be able to impact someone's life. It's much more greater than money. It's so much more pleasing than having. Yeah, listen, don't get me wrong. We all like to get paid, absolutely.
Sure.
But when you hear that story, that's an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you share that story with someone else, and they're like, wow, like, this is amazing. You were able to impact this person's life. Maybe you are a great coach. Let's work together. It has its benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, man, as we're wrapping up here, I'm really curious about, like, if there was one thing that you could say to this audience of listeners, which, you know, they're people who are either financial coaches now, or they're thinking about getting started, or, you know, whatever it might be. But, you know, it's an audience of financial coaches. Those coaches who have their own story of overcoming some sort of adversity with finances, and, you know, using that to channel it to serve other people and to step into that true calling that they're meant to be. What's one thing that you would tell that person who's maybe on the fence of either getting started, or maybe even on the fence of being vulnerable and sharing their own story with the world, because they don't want to be that person who's like, you know, that isn't perfect. You know what I mean? Like,
make yourself uncomfortable.
Okay. So
make yourself uncomfortable. You have to make yourself uncomfortable. We've been programmed, and we're just stuck on comfort. We're stuck on, oh, I'm getting a 9-to-5 job. I got a paycheck. But we're still, a lot of us are still struggling paycheck to paycheck. But we know the comfort of a 9-to-5 so we don't take risk. We'll see something that we want to want to do, but because we're afraid of being uncomfortable, or we're afraid of failing, or whatever it is, we just won't take that leap. Mm-hmm. And unless you take that leap, like had I not finally pressed record and released my first episode, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys.
Right.
Had I continue with the mindset that, oh, who's going to want to listen to me? I suck. Well, if you really truly want to be a coach, take the leap. How do you know you're going to succeed if you don't attempt it? If you don't make yourself uncomfortable, if you don't step out of the box and go and be like, you know what, I am going to be a coach. I am a coach. I am going to do this. Take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that can happen?
You can't win the game if you don't play.
You can't.
Yep.
Well,
love it.
4 years later, how do you like that first episode?
It was crazy because first episode was probably like 5 minutes long.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So like later on, I did a reintroduction. Like probably later on, a year later or so, mm-hmm. I added an additional 35 minutes to the first episode. So it was introduction, reintroduction, and you can see the growth. Even now, even because I started off strictly audio. Then I kind of went to audio video, to where I am doing 3 live shows a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I am live hosting my show. And it's an amazing just to see where I started at. Like,
yeah, the progression.
From not knowing how to interview people. Like, one of my first interviews was like 3 hours long because I didn't know how to do an interview. I didn't know how to conduct an interview. I'm not a professional. I wasn't. But as time went on, and with each episode, I just improved, learned that, all right, this is what I need to do, work on this. And now I've got to a point where, all right, I'm averaging 35, 45 minutes an interview. And if it's a real great conversation, it might go up to an hour. And to see the growth, to see where I've grown as a interviewer, like the questions and the work and everything that I've learned how to automate my system. How I got a system where this is how it goes, and it makes doing my show so much easier now. Where before it was work. I would spend hours and hours and hours preparing for my show. Mm-hmm. Now with the system that I've implemented, it's like, all right, I line up 3 shows a week, and I probably do lining them up. It doesn't probably take me not even an hour to get everything done that I need to get done for all 3 shows in an hour.
Yeah, it probably takes you less time now to get ready for 3 live shows a week than it did to hit record on that first 5-minute podcast, right? Yeah. And that just goes to show our progression. And sometimes it's just so incremental that we can't even fathom what it's going to look like 4 years from now. And now that you're here, it's hard to even look back and go, why was that so stinking hard for me? But you're 4 years past that moment. You know, you've got 4 years of experience and just thought processes and probably networking that you didn't have 4 years ago. And there's so much to say about that.
Oh yeah, networking is important. Mm-hmm. It's definitely, I've built relationships with people that they are lifelong friends now. They're like, I've connected with them, and now we're friends for life. Because being able to build that relationship, because you start surrounding yourself with like-minded people. You start connecting with people who see what you're doing, and like, man, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. I want to connect with that person. And so I've been able to connect with people that they're in such stages that I'm like, man, all right. And being able to learn from them and ask them questions has helped me. It has helped my podcast grow and evolve and change, because there's things that I've taken from other people's show and put it in my show, or just certain things. But that's just the growth of me, of my show, of everything, just everything in general. Because, like I said, when I first started, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone who was doing podcasting. It took me getting into it and networking and connecting and going to Podfest in, what was it, 2001, 2002? 2002 was the first podcast fest that I attended. And that was life-changing, because now you're in a whole conference of like-minded people. You're in a whole conference of people who've experienced what you've experienced as an independent podcaster. Because what we do is not easy. Mm-hmm. People think that we just come here, we talk, and that's it. No, there's work into what we're doing. What you guys doing is work. Mm-hmm. There's work with which we had to learn about using. I'm sure Riverside wasn't the first thing y'all used. There was other things you were using. Like, everybody started off with Zoom. I use StreamYard personally. Just different things. There's a lot of work that goes into what we're doing. We just don't come up here and just record. We don't just come here and just. No, we've spent hours and hours honing our skills to make sure that we provide the best quality that we can. Like your next episode is going to be a better episode than this episode. Then the one, it's just with each episode, you're just going to get better. Why? Because you're putting in the reps. Mm-hmm. It's like practice. It's like anything. You keep going and keep going. You're just only going to get better.
Yep. You're right, brother. It is a lot of work. So, I mean, you guys heard Will, like, it's a lot of work. So hit the subscribe button. I mean, come on. So, no, but Will, man, we appreciate you, brother. Where can people find you or find your show? You know, like if you were to send them anywhere, where would you send them?
You can go to you go to www.stuckmymindpodcast.com. There you can find the podcast. You can find the blog. You can find a couple of resources that I have for people who might need help with mental health or whatever it is. It's so much there. But yeah, I'm on all major platforms. I'm on YouTube. You go to YouTube, Stuck My Mind Podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere. I'm on there. Oh man, it's been a pleasure being here, man. It's always good when I'm on the other side, like where I don't have to prepare for anything. I can just come and talk. I love that. I'm working on being on more podcasts. Definitely, that's something as a podcaster that you must do in order to grow your audience. You need to be a guest on other people's podcasts. You really need to go network and be a guest and share your story, because you never know who might have to hear it. You don't ever know who's out there who's going through struggles. It's listen. Like, I just want to tell you one more last thing. So last year was the best year for my podcast ever, like the best year. But it wasn't personally. It was a rough year. Like, but I didn't let it affect how I would do my show. Cause, earlier this year, I don't know, Cody, you know, but I buried my mom. She passed away after a couple of years of struggling with dementia and Alzheimer's and everything. So I was having my best successful year in my podcast, and people couldn't tell that I was struggling with things at home, because regardless of what I was going through, everything that I have been through in life kind of prepared me for what I was going through with her. And when she passed this February, it was like, man, I really now truly need to really celebrate her by enjoying everything that I'm doing, really enjoying life, enjoying the success of the pod, enjoying the relationships that I'm building, because now I need to celebrate her and show her that I'm good. I'm all right. I'm gonna get through this just as I've gotten through everything else.
Yep. You bet. I'm really glad that you were able to share that last bit. I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your mom among all of those other losses. It's amazing how you have been prepared for all of that and what you're doing and how you're taking it and just using it for the better of other people. Thank you for sharing that story. Can you hear me okay, Will?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just I hear you. But thank you guys for having me, and this has been great. We need to work on when we're going to have you on my show. So we definitely got to work on that. I would love to have you guys come on the show and talk about your stories and your journeys. So we got to make that happen.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much. I want to go ahead and just thank you again for coming. Just remind all of our listeners to look Will up on his podcast. We're going to put all of that in the show notes for you guys because he obviously has some really great stuff. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but we have run out of time, so maybe we can get this in another time, is what is your favorite story that you've heard? And so I am curious to go to your podcast and listen to some of the interviews that you've done so that I can hear some of those incredible stories from others as well. So encourage all of our listeners to do the same.
No doubt. I look forward to having you guys come on, and I might have to make a special thing, because like for my show right now, I'm booked through September, but I'm gonna make it so that we can do something sooner than that. Like within the next couple of weeks, I'll send Cody my other calendar, and we could definitely have you guys and we can record something and.
We get the celebrity calendar, right?
Yeah, you get the special calendar where you get you skip a whole bunch of other people.
Oh, well, thank you again so much. I know that that Cody appreciates you being here. He's having a little bit of trouble with some of the recording stuff, so that's why he's being quiet at the moment. Yeah. But I just wanted to, again, thank you for coming on today. We look forward to connecting with you further in the future. And for all of our listeners out there, tune in next week for another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. You guys have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.